Let's go.
Right. Hello, Richard. How are you?
Hi, Fran. I'm good. Yourself?
I'm very good, thank you. We are back from Dublin. We did a conference there about sustainability and the levers that make sustainability. Remarkably, one of the things that actually are lacking in the market is something that we are going to talk about today, because we covered our introduction to Trinity. What is Trinity? And last week we spoke about the risk-free program that many companies are looking to have certainty of what is the return they're going to get in the investment and why we do it, which is all the ethics and the values that we have in Trinity to do this program, which is
Yeah.
a risk-free, a 90-day risk-free program. And today, I think is a natural step that is a systems evolutions, how things are the way they are and how evolve in time. And sometimes this is good to know also for how things evolve or what the companies get out of this evolution as a part of the solution.
Yeah. Look, it's a very simple concept. Is if you're delivering a solution, you want to make sure that people agree there's a problem that you're solving,
Right.
and of course. And in order to lay the groundwork for that, we're going to address it as system evolution
Yeah.
in response to market demands. And
Right.
I've got a little presentation I'd like to share,
Yeah,
and we can
please.
kind of go through that, and
Yeah,
then we
perfect.
can talk about it, right?
Yeah, excellent. Okay, it's coming up now.
I'm sharing my
So,
screen now, and I'm going to maximize that. All right. So
yeah,
this is
perfect.
today's subject, system evolution, simplifying complexity through innovation. This is
Right.
not so much about invention,
Mm,
right? Invention and innovation are two different things.
right.
Okay. And we'll get into that a little bit more later. Okay. But basically, it's a fairly simple rule. Systems must evolve to meet market needs.
Right.
Just a fact, or they become redundant, all right? Or they become obsolete. Sorry.
Yeah.
Markets demand simplicity. Sometimes it takes them a while because sometimes pressure and complexity needs to build up before that demand is put in place. But eventually, they always demand simplicity,
Right.
right? And systems evolve when that complexity becomes a barrier to progress
Yeah.
for the customers using the systems. Today, we're first going to explore two major examples that demonstrate that, and then
Hmm.
our own humble little case of why Trinity represents a system evolution.
Excellent. Right.
Okay. First example is a really interesting story, actually. Flight data recorders,
Mm,
right? Now, a lot of the components of flight data recorders were not new, right? Um, pri- Prior to the 50s, pilots basically had an onerous task in commercial aviation, especially, where the co-pilot, flight engineer, whatever, they had to log critical flight data
yeah.
constantly, right? Altitude and the fuel and the direction and the time in the flight and any issues that come up, et cetera, et cetera. It was all done manually. It had to be done. It was done constantly. It was often incomplete, error prone,
Mm,
but it was mandated that it had to be handed in. It had to be recorded, right?
right.
For safety purposes, right?
Yeah.
And around, the 50s, early 50s, the first flight data recorder prototypes were developed by Dr. David Warren in Australia.
Wow.
They didn't meet with any success
Yeah.
or adoption until about 1958, where there was, an event, a tragic crash that was inexplicable.
Yeah.
By the 1960s, black boxes, that's what we call these flight data recorders, became
Yeah.
mandatory in commercial aviation. There's one
Wow.
example. The result was safer skies, faster investigations,
Mm,
and more reliable regulatory compliance.
right. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another good example would be accounting software for SMEs and mid-market
Hmm.
companies. prior to the 1980s, small businesses and medium-sized businesses sometimes relied on totally manual bookkeeping to generate reports, to deal with tax authorities, etc. They had to have accountants do everything. And then in 1983, Intuit launched QuickBooks. They, by basically democratizing financial management for SMEs. An accounting system. Awesome, an accounting system. But remember, once upon a time, there was no accounting system for SMEs in mid-market, right? 2000s and onward, now we've got the cloud-based accounting solutions like Xero, enabling like real-time reporting and compliance for businesses from sole proprietors all the way up to enterprises, right? The result there, automated generation of P&L, balance sheets, easier compliance, better business control, and massively simplified assurance and audits and tax reporting, etc. Right? There's another example of evolution. Right? So that gives us a pattern of system evolution, that when complexity is blocking progress, systems evolve. Flight data recorders weren't adopted just because the technology existed. They succeeded because someone applied it to solve a critical safety challenge at the right moment. That 1958 inexplicable crash. Then it was adopted. Prior to that, it was just a great idea. QuickBooks also, there was already accounting software, computers already existed, etc. But QuickBooks didn't invent accounting software. It reframed it for non-accountants. Right? Made it easier. They didn't change the rules of accounting, right? They made them basically transparent to the user, who didn't need to know a bunch of codes and stuff like that in order to do transactions, right? They could click the balance sheet button as opposed to trying to figure out how to create a balance sheet, right? So once again, you're applying existing technology to an underserved SME market. In both cases, market pressure met usable technology, and a breakthrough followed. So that gives you your key pattern for system evolution. Problems intensify, technology becomes usable, someone applies it correctly, and the whole market shifts. It's happened a million times. Those are just two very, very clear examples that, people our age will relate to, right? Now, operational complexity, regulatory pressures, and ESG obligations, I believe, have reached a similar tipping point. I wanted to inject here a quick anecdote. So this was the late 70s. I'm 12 years old. I get it into my head to invent a new letter in the alphabet. It was called the letter ing. Basically, it's the pronunciation of ing, but it was in a single letter. And there it is off to the right. That's
the symbol there below your picture.
It's a combination of I, N, and G, and it represents that sound, ing. Right? I even I was timing my father's secretary, and the typist pool and stuff like that. So it was backed by some research, and I had a mission: saving keystrokes, saving time, saving paper, saving money, and maybe even saving a whole bunch of trees. People didn't care. I extrapolated from ing to ing, and as an efficiency, as an innovation for our alphabet. And late 70s, saving trees wasn't a massive driver, I guess. But I used it even in my presentation essay. All occurrences of ing, I left them blank, and then I hand wrote in my little ing symbol. Baffled the teacher, right? And she said something along the lines of, well, it's a nice idea, but I don't think anyone will agree that there's a problem here. Basically, I'd come up with a solution that, and the world didn't agree there was a problem.
Right, right.
right? Now, to a 12-year-old, that was pretty upsetting because I thought it was a great idea,
Yeah.
right? And to console me, my grandfather told me something I've always remembered, always kept forefront in my mind. And he said, keep reimagining the way things are. One day, the world just might agree with you,
Yeah.
right? Now, that kind of brings us into, making the case for Trinity as it being an actual solution,
Right.
an innovation, an evolution that actually has a problem, that it meets, right? And we can agree on what the problem is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
hopefully it goes over better than the letter ing, but I haven't given up yet. So current operational pain point. Let's agree that there's a problem here, right? Today's challenges in operations and compliance, ESG, etc. Right? There's rising regulatory pressure.
Yeah.
In Europe, there's CSRD. The US, it's SEC. There's ISO standards. There's all sorts of ESG compliance frameworks all over the world that are being applied in the markets. And it's having a much bigger impact on SMEs and mid-market companies than people anticipated because those SMEs, if they're of a certain size, et cetera, are part of supply chain, right? And since the big guys have to address type 3 emissions and a whole slew of questions that involve their SME suppliers, they have no choice but to be involved. And also, if your stakeholders want you to be doing the voluntary adoption of these regulatory frameworks, then you're kind of left with little choice. But people have, in that space, systems are siloed, right? And there's massively fragmented visibility of data. Interestingly enough, a lot of people may not know this. GRC, which is Governance, Risk, and Compliance Systems, those are a type of system that already exists, right? However, there are very few of them, and even the ones that you can adapt require quite a bit of effort to ESG, which is a subset of GRC, believe it or not. ESG is just a type of governance, risk, and compliance, right? It's a subset, but you can't take a typical GRC software and adapt it to ESRS in the EU, for instance.
Right.
A lot of people don't know that. And it's kind of an interesting oversight. Also, if you go out and buy one of these newly emerging ESG reporting tools, they can't handle the larger scope of governance, risk, and compliance for an entire operation, even at the large blue chip ERP level. And I'm talking about the big guys. Their GRC doesn't deliver ESG, or their ESG sustainability add-on doesn't deliver on GRC. So the two combined is already a solution. Right? Compliance and ESG is more or less at this stage being treated as a costly, zero to low ROI reporting burden. It's a sunk cost project. We're seeing it all over the place. People are even buying new software platforms to participate in a sunk cost reporting project. Right? Massive amounts of money is being spent on ESG reporting, and that's probably why there were some delays in the uptake of
in the European Union,
in the EU. Lots of pushback because nobody's ready for it, and so it's all a big reporting project, and it's massive and complex, right? Stakeholders, though, have increased their demand for certainty related to things that are more than profit. Once upon a time, they only insisted on profit, right? Nowadays, they're insisting on more than profit. They want to participate in a profitable venture, but not if it's going to bite them in the bottom, right? Not if it's at the expense of the environment, the community, and that kind of stuff. Anyway, so complexity in all of this is now an enemy of progress. They're having to delay timelines. They're having to, apologize for having frameworks at all in some cases, right? We need to innovate to get rid of the old problem, not just the old system.
Right.
Can we agree that there is a problem?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Why is Trinity representative of a system evolution? Basically, if you took all of those systems and platforms and reimagined them where, just like an accounting system, where the reporting is an outcome of day-to-day transactional execution, right? It is basically a reimagining of existing technology to address those specific market pains.
Yeah.
It is natively in the roots, in the guts, fully integrated strategy, risk, ESG, operations, all in one system.
Yeah.
Right? It also represents affordable complexity. So it's capable of a great deal of complexity, but affordable complexity. It's designed for SMEs in the mid-market.
Yeah.
Okay? It's outcome driven. Reporting and compliance are outcomes.
Right.
So instead of ESG reporting, hoping it will have an ROI, which it won't, ESG reporting should be an ROI of having Trinity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because actually, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, just go ahead. Yeah, let's finish the concepts and then we'll go for.
Okay, and Trinity is assured.
Yeah.
Right? Our model, our methods, our means, our process, our experience, and our understanding of enterprise software projects, et cetera, we've established, we addressed it in our previous session, our 90-day risk-free certainty program. Why does all of this matter? We've simplified compliance and reporting versus a sunk cost compliance project. It's an outcome. We're replacing all that chaos with certainty, clarity, and control.
Yeah.
Right? And we align execution with strategic outcomes every day. Just like a financial report, you can run that trial balance anytime. You can do a balance sheet anytime. You could, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
The best time to do it is at month end or at the year end and stuff like that. But you can run the report anytime. It's based on the transactional execution of your accounting transaction.
Yeah.
Trinity is operational transactions. So you have that everyday alignment between execution and strategic outcomes. So the truth is, and this is just agreeing that there is a real problem, many systems claim to simplify compliance and operations, right? Most are actually add-ons, overbuilt or out of reach for SMEs and mid-market firms, right?
Right.
Reporting has become a burdensome project, not a strategic outcome.
Yeah.
I think this slide is a little bit of a repetition of our previous slide, right? Trinity is kind of built differently. It was integrated as a foundation, not a bolt-on, right?
Yeah.
And I want to reiterate that point that we basically purposely reimagined existing technology to address market pain. Okay. Now, why do I then go into AI and ML? Because, I've had it proposed to me that AI represents that next evolution. I said, no, wait a minute.
Yeah.
First, you need to evolve the foundation. Then you can evolve with AI. So let's just get into a little bit of what those are, right? Artificial intelligence is basically simulates human reasoning and decision making, right? It requires training. Machine learning learns patterns from data for prediction and improvement, right? If you have structured, unified data, you can have a trustworthy AI. If you have siloed, fragmented data, you get a shallow and risky AI. And basically, it's not about how much data you have. It's about how well it's connected. Machine machine learning especially thrives on meaningful relationships between data, right?
Yeah.
It's looking for patterns in the relationships, not just raw volume. And then,
Right.
and then it might infer the relationships. Basically, AI is only as smart as the operational truth, the whole story that it can access, right?
Yeah.
And there are hidden risks to a lot of the AI and the machine learning that's been thrown out there. What's called the AI hype. One of those risks is spurious correlation, right? It can mislead an AI. And the best example of that, although no AI is going to fall for it, but it's just a good example of what a spurious correlation is, right? Ice cream sales correlate with shark attacks. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Yeah. And, you could think, oh, well, I wonder what it is about the ice cream that attracts the sharks, right? No, it just so happens that in the summertime, ice cream sales increase. And in the summertime, more people are in the water. And so they're available for shark attacks. So
it's nothing to do with the ice cream chemicals
no,
or chemical reaction to the body, nothing to do with that.
It's strongly correlated.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But there's a difference between correlation and causation. There's
Right.
zero relationship between the two. There is no causation.
Yeah.
Right? The ice cream doesn't cause the shark attack, but it's correlated.
Yeah.
Because of other data, right? Now,
which is the summertime.
It's the summertime. It's the weather. It's the temperature, right? And ultimately, that's the foundation of the spurious correlation problem. Is the AI may not know what it doesn't know. So it'll make inferences. If you go and play around with an AI nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Very often, we ran into this recently with one of our advisors. We asked an AI to come up with a blurb about him, and it made inferences to the point where it was all fictional.
Yeah.
It found some data, and we had to basically give it the instruction, don't make any inferences. If you don't know, just say you don't know, right?
Yeah.
And then it came up with something that was more factual, right? And that's I'm correcting my AI all the time. I don't know about you, but I find it all the time that it makes leaps and stuff like that, which is, it's cool to watch sometimes. It makes a really good leap, but sometimes it's spurious. It's a bad leap, right? Basically, poor data structure equals risky decision.
Yeah.
Especially if you're basing your decision on a recommendation from an AI that doesn't have the whole picture. That's what it comes down to. There are various other potential risks. There's a thing that's called data drift. Now, I don't want to get too much into the science of it, right?
Yeah.
But basically, data drift is when input data changes over time, making it different from the data the model was trained on.
Right.
Model drift, that hits, machine learning, right? Is when the model's predictions degrade over time because it's no longer aligned with the current data or reality.
Right.
You can get feedback loops where AI can reinforce its own blind spots. You can get things that are called opaque logic, where models make decisions you can't explain or defend.
Yeah.
Have fun defending a recommendation to a stakeholder that was a recommendation from an AI that didn't understand your business cradle to grave, right? And this is my point. If the strategy layer, which is your GRC layer, is not integrated with all of the various data relationships that implies, with all of your operational data, how can an AI or machine learning, it's going to have to make nothing but inferences, right? When it comes to strategy. It won't know why things are changing. It'll just know that data has changed. It's trended. It's done this and that and the other. It could tell you you're overspending on maintenance, right? but it doesn't know that your strategy was to increase your maintenance spend, to to increase asset useful life.
Yeah.
There's just one of many examples. If you don't have the whole picture,
Yeah.
then how can it possibly know what it's talking about? Because it's
Yeah.
not an external AI that's being trained by hundreds of thousands of people all of the time, right? You're giving it your data, your company information to
Yeah.
try to come up with relevant assertions, relevant recommendations, right? And so you want it to know as much transactions, but also not just a volume of data. It needs to know relationships.
Yeah.
And if you change a strategy that changes the data and it doesn't know why you changed, like it doesn't understand that you changed the strategy. It has absolutely no idea why the data is evolving or changing, and it will make inferences. It will connect the dots when you don't give it any dots, right?
Yeah.
So building AI or ML without structured operational data and relationships is like building a castle on a sandbar, right?
Right.
Looks impressive for a while, but it can't stand up to real world conditions.
Yeah.
So beware of the hype. Yeah.
Right. Perfect.
We have a strategic approach to AI and ML, and I wanted to first unify EAM, ERP, and GRC in one platform.
Yeah.
The whole kit, all of it, right? To address those market complexities that are not being addressed first. Then layer in AI and machine learning, which we're doing presently, and we'll be releasing that feature soon, right?
Yeah.
And that'll give you great things like predictive risk insights, intelligent strategy evaluation,
right,
operational anomaly detections, ESG impact forecasting.
Mm-hmm.
I could go on and on and on, massive list of benefits, but if you don't have the operational transactions and all of that, along with the strategic inputs and drivers, etc., you can get some recommendations, but it's not going to be a complete picture, and it won't be able to help you, right?
Right.
In Trinity, AI will deliver superior outcomes, plain and simple, because it is being built on a superior foundation.
Right.
Final words.
Yeah.
Innovation, basically the art of making what was once complex feel inevitable.
Right.
All of that complexity, we've come up with a solution to it, and now people can look at that solution and say, of course.
Yeah. It's easy when it's already done, I guess, because people, it makes sense, actually. But bring that complexity down to something actually, this is the process or the system or the steps. That's the challenge. And I think that Trinity provide that technological solution or to that technological challenge, the solution that we have today.
Well, I think a good solution is also one that seems totally obvious once somebody comes up with it.
Yeah.
That's all.
Definitely.
I don't know why nobody did it this way. I know that there's bolt-ons for the big ERPs. I don't know why it isn't just like QuickBooks, that it's available, that there is a strategic layer and a compliance layer, for SMEs and mid-markets and everybody else, and all of them all the time.
Yeah.
But that doesn't discount the fact, just because it hasn't been come up with, doesn't mean that it isn't needed, and all of these compliance pressures are being put on everybody now. Now, some people see it as a government overreach problem. Other people see it as a staffing problem or reporting problem or whatever. I see it as a technology problem.
Yeah.
That's it. That systems need to evolve to address this expectation and this complexity that has been introduced into the market. And this is why we've created Trinity the way it is. This is what our customers are going to benefit from.
Perfect.
And thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we'll catch up next week then with another presentation that will be in the, what will be the topic next week? Sorry, I just forgot.
I'm not sure.
Stay tuned, as they say.
I've got a number of topics that I want to
Yeah.
address next.
Okay,
But we might
fantastic.
start getting into the actual system itself.
Excellent. That would be great to show all this complexity, how it works in real time. Thank you very much, Richard, and talk soon.
Great. Thanks, Fran.
Bye-bye.